And now it's my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, my friend, Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco. As the 39th Deputy Attorney General of the United States, Lisa has devoted her life to national security and public safety. An accomplished federal prosecutor, advisor, and leader, she's held a whole bunch of positions throughout DOJ and the U.S. government over the years, including counsel to Attorney General Janet Reno, Assistant U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Assistant Attorney General for National Security as the first woman to hold that position, Homeland Security Advisor and Counterterrorist Advisor to President Obama. But I'd like to think that some of her fondest professional memories might come from the years she spent at the FBI, where she served as Special Counsel and Chief of Staff to Director Mueller. Throughout her career, Lisa has been a staunch advocate of safe communities for all Americans, and she's got a long history of fighting for women's rights. I can tell you at the FBI, we are fortunate to benefit from her partnership, and it's great to see her today. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco.
I like that. See, no Shania Twain. So. Thanks so much, Director Wray, for that very generous introduction, and to Acting Deputy Secretary Canigallo for your words. Federal law enforcement is indeed fortunate to have great leaders like the two of you. You know, the Departments of Justice and Homeland Security together employ 80% of federal law enforcement. So I think it's pretty fitting that the Deputy Secretary and I are here together. Now, you may have heard on occasion rumors of rivalry between our two law enforcement agencies, but I can neither confirm nor deny that. But I can tell you that Deputy Secretary Canigallo and I are unified in our commitment to advancing women in law enforcement, and I am grateful for her partnership. And I think you heard this morning why she is such a terrific leader for DHS. Thank you also, President Bonas and Vice President Lane, for the invitation to speak today. It's an honor to join WIFL at its 25th anniversary celebration. I couldn't be more proud to be a part of this community of women in federal law enforcement, a community that exists in large part because of the vision of WIFL's founders. And I'm happy to see some of my former colleagues here as well, great law enforcement leaders like Amy Jo Lyons and Regina Lombardo, two former presidents of WIFL's executive committee. I first heard the name WIFL from Amy Jo when she was special agent in charge of the Baltimore field office for the FBI, and I was Director Mueller's chief of staff. And it's great, again, to see Regina, former ATF acting director and a trailblazer in that role. Now, we are all here for one very, very simple reason. Because we believe that women in law enforcement make our communities safer, and we need more of them. For 25 years, WIFL has been leading the way to make this a reality. Today, WIFL is the only nonprofit in the country dedicated exclusively to recruiting, retaining, and promoting women in federal law enforcement. Because of WIFL's persistence in promoting women in the law enforcement profession, we've come a long way. But there was a time, as has been mentioned, when every federal law enforcement agent in this nation was a man, every single one. And I guess that's not hard to believe when we hear about experiences like Nancy McRae's. But thanks to trailblazers like her and those we honor today, and thanks to WIFL's founders, there are now thousands of women serving in federal law enforcement, and I am proud to help lead many of those women in the Department of Justice who every single day are fulfilling our mission to uphold the rule of law, keep our communities safe, and protect civil rights. They are women serving as sworn law enforcement officers across the FBI, the ATF, the DEA, the Marshals Service, and the Federal Bureau of Prisons, as well as the members of the Justice Protective Service who protect our facilities. And they are women serving as analysts and in professional staff roles across the Justice Department's law enforcement agencies. And I want to thank Katrina for acknowledging women prosecutors as well. Today, we honor some of the profession's trailblazers. And I think trailblazers is a really appropriate term, because for all of us to move forward, somebody had to go first. And the courage and service of those first women in federal law enforcement remain an inspiration today. And I'm so happy that many of them are here with us today, and I'd like to acknowledge a few of them. FBI Special Agent Susan Malone, ATF Special Agent Ann Kosher, U.S. Postal Inspector Janine Gordon, and Secret Service Special Agents Phyllis Shantz, Catherine Clark Childers, and Sue Ann Baker. Your courage and service paved the path for the profession and for women who followed in your footsteps. Now, over the course of WIFL's 25-year history, we've seen sustained efforts by federal law enforcement agencies to recruit talented women to their ranks and to retain them. And while the numbers of women in federal law enforcement have grown, the overall percentage of women across federal law enforcement has actually remained relatively constant, around 14%. And that's why initiatives like the 30 by 30 initiative are so critical. Because as the saying goes, you can't be what you can't see. I'm guessing many of us have had the experience of, at some point, looking around a room and seeing that we were the only women in that room. Not today, thankfully. And I will say I grew up with 3 brothers, so it started happening to me a lot earlier in life. So we need more women in the pipeline to make that experience the exception and not the rule, to fill the profession's ranks, including at the executive level. And I'm proud that all of the Justice Department's law enforcement components have signed on to the 30 by 30 initiative, and I want to acknowledge Director Wray's leadership and commitment on this, and the FBI's leadership in reaching this goal with recent recruiting classes. While 30 by 30 focuses on ensuring that women make up 30% of recruiting classes by the year 2030, the recruiting classes are quite literally just the beginning. It's about recruiting more women to a career in law enforcement so that we're getting the best of the best people for the job, and strengthening our workforce across the board. That's why the leaders of the Justice Department's law enforcement agencies are reaching out to colleges and universities across the country, speaking to students and promoting a more diverse profession for the next generation of criminal justice leaders, including for women. They're running career fairs and building relationships with all-women colleges and universities, and developing targeted outreach programs for female veterans and military spouses to leverage their skills and experiences. And it's paying off. For instance, DEA has increased women in senior executive positions by 11% over the last few years. But this effort is about more than increasing women's representation and leadership in the profession. It is about the safety of our communities. Few professions stand to benefit more from adding women to their ranks than law enforcement. Building trust with the communities that we serve is critical to public safety. And among other things, as you heard from Christy this morning, research shows that women officers are less likely than men to use excessive force, and they're more effective at de-escalating volatile situations. Our communities deserve to have confidence in law enforcement that is reflected in that research. And women in law enforcement deserve to have the confidence of our communities. Every woman who's ever been the only woman in the room, at the table, or on the squad knows the feeling, the second guessing, the imposter syndrome, and worse. Unfortunately, some of those critiques are not confined to the occasional voice in your head. Recently, it seems the ghost of J. Edgar Hoover is alive and well, voicing the outdated, offensive, and yes, dangerous idea that women don't belong in law enforcement. Whether they occupy investigative, tactical, administrative, or yes, protective roles, women in law enforcement make our communities safer, and they do so in every aspect of the profession. And let me take this opportunity to say thank you to the women and men of the U.S. Marshals Service who serve on my protective detail and keep me safe every single day. I'm grateful for their service. Because the threats facing law enforcement today are more complex and more dangerous than ever. That includes an unacceptable level of threats against public officials, including law enforcement. And as these threats converge, I'm certain of this: we need more women in law enforcement across more communities in more senior roles than ever. And while we get there, the Justice Department is going to have your back. We celebrate your service, applaud your sacrifice, and appreciate everything you do to keep our public officials, our communities, and our country safe. I've got the privilege of witnessing this work every single day, and it's visible across the Justice Department, from DEA Administrator Ann Milgram to the Director of the Federal Bureau of Prisons, Colette Peters, to the many women leading within the U.S. Marshals Service, the ATF, and FBI throughout the country. Our communities and our country are better because of their outstanding work. As with Wiffle's Trailblazers, it's only when someone goes first that the rest of us can see the way. And I'm here today as Deputy Attorney General in large part because of another woman in law enforcement, in large part because my first boss at the Justice Department was Janet Reno, the very first woman Attorney General in this country's history. Now, it took a long time, too long, to reach that milestone. So we have to keep pushing. We have to keep pushing toward Wiffle's vision of what law enforcement can and should look like. We have to ensure that women have the opportunity to advance in all areas of the profession and to stay in the field for the long term. That's why this gathering is so important. That's why I couldn't be prouder to celebrate Wiffle's impact. And that's why I'm so happy to congratulate you on 25 years, and I can't wait to see what you do next. Thank you very much.